and just go, you know what? I would have done things much differently. Knowing what we know now, I'm embarrassed by how we handled this. To the people of New York, I wish that I would have taken more outside counsel. I felt like I was doing the right thing, but in retrospect, it was not the right thing. And I want to deeply and seriously apologize. And is that what our politicians do? No, of course not. Andrew Cuomo was just on Bill Maher. We have a Bill Maher heavy episode on episode 38 of the Clayton podcast today. And Bill Maher, who has always been a pretty liberal commentator, and now he seems to be more centrist. And if you ask him, it's not because he's moved to the right. It's because the culture has all kind of ran really far to the left. But he ended up playing interrogator to Andrew Cuomo's COVID policies. And Cuomo, of course, was the governor of New York when COVID first hit, and he got a lot of attention. A lot of people were almost assuming that he would become the next president because he was so much in the spotlight during the COVID time. And eventually he was kicked out of office and kind of disgraced for different allegations of sexual harassment and things like that. But he's on Bill Maher's Overtime, his television show on HBO. And Bill is going to ask him some pretty direct questions and give him the opportunity to come clean and apologize and own how he handled specifically taking the elderly people of New York who had COVID and putting them back into the nursing homes. And let's see how Andrew Cuomo responds.
Governor Cuomo, knowing what you know now, is there anything you would change about the way you would administration handled COVID? Okay, that's the question we didn't get to. And I was going to read you the...
Is there anything you would have changed knowing what you know now about how you handled COVID? Let's see what he has to say.
ProPublica statement, which they basically said New York was the only state. Now, of course, the scandal, the issue involved that people don't remember is that, obviously this is the beginning of the pandemic. Everything was chaotic. We didn't know what was going on, but we did know this. It mostly affected the elderly people, like most pathogens do. They were the most vulnerable. So you allowed people who had been in the hospital, older people from a nursing home, now they go to the hospital, to go back into the nursing home without testing them. That ProPublica says you were the only state to do it without testing them when they went back into the nursing home. And that's what caused such death in the nursing home.
Yeah.
Is that true?
Okay, so this is easy. Is that true? Everyone's reported on this. Everybody knows this. There's been lawsuits proving this. This is a softball. And Andrew Cuomo, who was not going to go away forever, however much trouble politicians get in, you just give them a little bit of time and all of a sudden, we're back. We knew he was going to be back. And this is a softball. I mean, lobbed, underhand, right over the plate, falling at the exact angle. All you have to do is just wind up. You can step into it, right? You can literally step into this one, knock it out of the park, and just go, you know what? I would have done things much differently. Knowing what we know now, I'm embarrassed by how we handled this. To the people of New York, I wish that I would have taken more outside counsel. I felt like I was doing the right thing, but in retrospect, it was not the right thing. And I want to deeply and seriously apologize. And is that what our politicians do? No, of course not. They never do this. They can never admit when they're wrong. And so let's see how he spins this.
Short answer is no. Also, remember, you say what we knew. First, this is Monday morning quarterbacking, by which I could make the New York Jets champion, right? If we could do this. When COVID started.
Now, for sure, this doesn't matter, but for sure, he thought that was a laugh line. You can tell because he even paused. Monday morning quarterback, I can make the Jets the champions. Pause for laughter. That doesn't happen. This was scripted. He was ready for this. And he is going to continue to obfuscate and not take responsibility.
It was, all the disinformation was amazing, right? It was coming from China, wet market, zootropic virus. It was going to California and state of Washington. So we banned travel to China, from China. It turned out that China had already spread it to Europe. All the European flights were coming to New York.
Now, you have to be careful when you listen to politicians, because if you just listen to this answer, you would think that the question someone asked him was, the way that the virus entered America seems to be different than we anticipated. What are your thoughts about that? He has just turned this into a question that nobody asked him, and he's not addressing the question head on at all.
JFK. So it had been here for months and it was astronomical. When we first found out about it, and Scott can appreciate this, they were projecting we would need 150,000 hospital beds.
Not the
To
question.
deal with the number of infected.
I remember.
We only had 50,000 in the entire state of New York. So
You did it to free up bed.
we were afraid of losing hospital beds, but people who were in hospitals, who were considered medically stable, who were tested, were sent to nursing homes if the nursing home said they could treat that person in a way that protects the other people in the nursing home. And that was a way to make sure we had enough
But it
hospital
didn't,
beds.
did it? I mean, they also, I mean, the same organization, ProPublica, says you counted the number who died differently. In other words, you only counted the ones who died in the nursing home, whereas many people came from the nursing home and died in the hospital, and you didn't count those. You
Good
only
for
counted
Bill.
that They died in the nursing home, which they felt was deliberate.
Well, let me not get weedsy with you. Every day I did a briefing, and every day we collected information from hospitals and from nursing homes. And we printed two numbers on the screen every day. This is the number of people who died in the hospital. This is the number of people who died in the nursing home, which means you had to go back every day to 1,000 hospitals, nursing homes.
Okay, this continues on. It was not my fault. The short answer is no. I wouldn't have changed anything. Nobody knew this. Nobody knew that it actually affected the elderly more than everyone else, 3 months, 6 months into the pandemic, except people did know that. We knew almost nothing about it, but very, very quickly, there was a huge percentage of the country who was saying, oh, this is really, really dangerous for the elderly who have comorbidities. And for everyone else, we just kind of got to mind our P's and Q's. People knew that. Countries made their entire policies based on that. Sweden was like, if you're old and have a comorbidity, you got to relax for a little while. Everyone else, keep working. People knew this. It was willful blindness. And this is what leaders, and especially political leaders, do. Has he taken an ounce of responsibility for thousands of elderly people who needlessly died specifically because of New York's COVID policy? Has he taken any responsibility? No, of course he has not. And he's not going to. He doesn't throughout this entire thing. Here is the actual article that Bill Maher continues to reference, the ProPublica article. It says, Cuomo still underreporting the total count of COVID nursing home deaths. This is from 2021. Hundreds of COVID-19 deaths among New York State's nursing home residents still have not been formally acknowledged by the administration of Andrew Cuomo, according to the Empire Center, a public policy think tank in Albany. Bill Hammond, an analyst with the Empire Center, said recent state disclosures of all deaths of nursing home residents, whether they perished in their facilities or at local hospitals to date, failed to include more than 650 deaths of people presumed to have died from COVID-19. Hammond said the state referenced the deaths in a footnote to its public data release, saying that it is still seeking to verify the official cause of death in those cases. After months of requests from state lawmakers, subpoenas from Congress, and a lawsuit by the Empire Center, the Cuomo administration in recent weeks has finally begun to concede that thousands more nursing home residents had died of COVID-19 than previously made public. Now, here's the really damning part of this whole article. On Thursday, now this is in 2021, Melissa DeRosa, Cuomo's most senior advisor on the pandemic response, apologized to lawmakers for the delays in making basic death data available, saying the administration was worried. Here it is, saying the administration was worried the death tolls would arm Republicans in Washington in what it regarded as a political vendetta against the governor.
Stop the cap.
They were misreporting the numbers by his most senior advisor on the pandemic response's own words, because they were worried those death tolls would arm Republicans in Washington in what they saw as a political vendetta against the governor.
Stop the cap.
They just lied about it, and they lied about it specifically for political reasons. And now he is having to take no responsibility for this, even though if there were any path back into most people's good graces, it would require taking responsibility and making amends to the best of his abilities for what he has done. The book of wisdom, this is such an important verse. Proverbs 28:13 says, whoever conceals their sins does not prosper, but the one who confesses and renounces them finds mercy. Whoever conceals their sins does not prosper. James, the half-brother of Jesus, he talks about confession of our sins. And interestingly enough, he actually links it to healing, like physical healing. It also creates emotional healing and relational healing and psychological healing when we are able to confess what we have done. Whoever conceals their sin does not prosper, but the one who confesses and renounces them finds mercy. Here's what was so interesting about Andrew Cuomo during this is that he immediately began writing a book. I mean, as soon as this started, he began churning out what was like a best-selling book about his response to this. And while the world is burning around him, he is writing a self-serving memoir about his great leadership that ended up being some of the poorest leadership in the entire country because of his willful blindness to the data that was in front of him. While Rome is burning, Nero is just playing the lyre, you know? The story of Emperor Nero, some people think he actually started the Great Fire of Rome in order to clear out land to expand the palace. Many people believe that. But what we know about it is that Nero allowed Rome to burn and immediately blamed it on the Christians in that area. Did the Christians do it? No! They did not do it. He blamed it on the Christians, and it led to massive persecution of the Christians, and he seemingly did not care. And we don't know if this is historical fact or not, but the ancient rumor through the ages is that he was in the palace playing the lyre, playing an instrument, just kind of watching Rome burn. What does it matter to me? Andrew Cuomo won an Emmy for his press conferences during this time. He became a national celebrity during this time. And now that we see his policies failed, and it's not like a bridge didn't get built, thousands of elderly people died, and he has the opportunity to take responsibility, and he does not. Authority requires responsibility. And until you're ready to own your mistakes, you don't understand true responsibility. Leadership is authority and responsibility. And the fun part of leading is you get a lot of authority. You get to be in charge of things. You get to make decisions. You get to tell people what to do. But authority and responsibility have to come in equal measure. And the true measure of your responsibility is whether you can take ownership when things go wrong. Like it says in Proverbs, whoever conceals their sins does not prosper, but the one who confesses and renounces their sin finds. If you enjoyed this clip, make sure you check out the full podcast and subscribe and hit the notification bell to stay up to date with all new content. You can also support the channel at patreon.com/Clayton Tyner. Link is in the description below.